9 powerful beings suddenly appeared on the swings in my garden. But they're honestly way too small, smaller than anything I've ever seen. They can't even handle a single spider on their own. Luckily, I moved my finger in time to save one, though I got a bit dirty doing it. Inside, they trembled. What kind of monstrous existence is this? The Chaos Spider, a creature no one has ever managed to witness, was about to devour all 9 of us. Even with our combined strength as great sages, we couldn't stop it. Yet he annihilated it in a single heartbeat. They bowed low and cried out, "Thank you for saving us, Venerable Senior. May we ask which sovereign of the immortal realm you are? We are merely cultivators who just ascended from the lower realms. If the Venerable Senior does not despise us for our weakness, I am ready to join the Venerable Senior's sect immediately. I beg the Venerable Senior to accept us." This wasn't just a heaven-defying opportunity for them. It was their only chance to survive in this immortal realm. The other ascendants rotting around the world tree were a grim lesson in what happens to those who fail. I know it is presumptuous, but please accept my request, Venerable Senior. Even if I only serve as a humble servant by your side, sovereign of the sect, I'm just an ordinary person with a terminal illness about to die. I have no sect, and I'm certainly no sovereign. My words were simple, but to these little ones, they sounded like thunder. They grew even more terrified, kneeling and begging for mercy. Please accept my request, Venerable Senior. We are willing to serve you, even if you won't take us in as your disciples. I'm no great figure, but I told them not to worry. I promised I would do my best to protect them. As for the serving part, I told them we could talk about that later. The other little ones nodded their heads in frantic approval. In their eyes, I am clearly an existence of extreme power. To them, being able to serve me is the highest honor. It seemed fun to play along with these 2 groups of tiny people. It would be a shame if they were killed by insects or small animals. Hearing my promise, they finally seemed to settle into this world. My mind relaxed, but the little ones, already exhausted, suddenly collapsed. They fainted right there. What's happening? They didn't just die, did they? I reached out to touch them, but I was afraid of crushing them with my strength. At your service. Thank you. Reporting to the immortal. They are fine. It's just that the battle against the chaotic creature drained them. Their energy is depleted right now, and that is why they fainted. In simple terms, they just passed out from hunger, didn't they? I suppose you could call it a scientific explanation of sorts. The leader nodded in agreement. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a piece of bread. I didn't have anything else on me. It's only half a piece of bread, but go ahead and eat some. I placed the bread on the ground, but to the little people, it was a spectacle. My arm looked like a massive pillar descending from the clouds. As my hand lowered the bread, it felt to them like a meteor crashing toward the earth. This power is terrifying. One random palm strike could destroy an entire country. Thank you, Immortal. Don't mention it. Just eat. Take your time. The little ones began to eat, slowly regaining their physical strength. Soon enough, they were able to hover and fly again. This was actually getting interesting. It felt like keeping a group of tiny, exotic pets. If we stay loyal, maybe we can join the Immortals sect. We will follow you to the death. It's just a simple piece of bread. Don't worry about it. Living here is dangerous. Snakes, rats, and ants are everywhere. Do you want me to move you? We are entirely at the Immortals' mercy. We will go wherever you arrange. Thank you. I scooped them up into my hands and started walking toward the house. But the moment I moved them 3 meters away from the tiny tree, their bodies began to wither. Their life force was draining away instantly. What's happening? Is it better if I let you fly? I quickly moved to put them back down. It seemed my plan wasn't going to work. They literally couldn't survive outside the range of that specific tree. The little people looked devastated that they couldn't join my sect and come inside. But they had no choice but to accept their fate. They were simply too weak to exist without the protection of this world tree. This tree is clearly extraordinary. Maybe my world is undergoing some kind of spiritual rebirth. I decided to post my questions on various forums and message boards to see if anyone knew anything. Has anyone else found tiny flying people around their house, like those cultivators or flying swordsmen? You know, like immortal demons, sect leaders, or fairies? One reply asked, are there any nuns? If so, check if their structure is the same as ours. Ugh, every single response was completely useless. They weren't helping at all. If this world isn't going through a spiritual rebirth, then what about those little people? Are those tiny beings in the garden only appearing here with me? The next day, I headed back out to the garden. I didn't expect that in just one night, they would have already built so much. It's incredible. Wow, they're actually out there cultivating. If I could cultivate immortal power too, maybe my terminal illness would finally be cured. Immortal Elder, you have returned. I just wanted to ask, could you teach me your healing methods? Cultivation? The Immortal Venerable wants our cultivation methods? That can't be right. Is it inconvenient? No, it's not that. It's just, Immortal, you are already so powerful. Don't be a fool. Maybe the Immortal just wants to take a look. No, really, I want to practice your methods. My world doesn't have any cultivation techniques. Your way of cultivating seems very interesting, and I want to try it for myself. I see. We don't know what kind of constitution an Immortal has, and our methods vary for each one. How about we teach you all our techniques? Then the senior can decide for himself. I took a deep breath and began to follow the instructions of the little people. The Kunlun fairy was the first to teach me her Kunlun sword formula. A tiny speck of light shot into my eyes, flooding my mind with the complex secrets of the immortals. How was it? I didn't feel a thing. Maybe I was just overthinking this whole thing. How could the techniques of these tiny people ever work for someone like me, who's already dying? It's fine, just do your best and leave the rest to fate. You don't need to blame yourselves. The senior really is a kind-hearted person. Alright, that's enough for now. Keep cultivating slowly. I have things to do. Wait, senior, perhaps there is one more technique that might suit you. The Great Void technique still has its defenses. It's the essence of our lives as the 9 saints, condensed into one. If the immortal is willing, please try it. I'm going to die soon anyway, so I might as well take the risk. Maybe this will be the turning point I need. Immortal, please, sit down and prepare yourself. The sacred text of those born with heavenly knowledge began to flow through my 8 channels like torrential waves. Unlike the numbness from before, this technique entered my mind and gave me a sudden sense of enlightenment. This technique is unique. It's as if it's alive and proactively serving my body. As I adjusted my breathing, I felt a warm current in my lower abdomen, moving through my body at my command. First, it circled through my stomach. Then, it surged through every inch of my being. The flow of heat eventually returned to my dantian. It felt as incredible as getting a high-end, full-body massage. This technique actually works. I can cultivate it too. If I can master this, I'll finally have real value instead of just being a charity case for Chinfeng. I didn't realize it had already grown dark outside. A single cycle took an entire day. They weren't kidding when they said time flies in a god's cave. I can feel my body improving. My strength, my lungs, and my energy are all surging. Even the lingering effects of my terminal illness are starting to fade. If I keep this up, I might actually cure my cancer completely. The immortal's progress is impressive. An ordinary person would have taken much longer. I wonder what level I've reached. Have I even broken through the first stage? The first stage of chi refinement. Let's see. Judging by their faces, I definitely haven't hit that first level yet. Immortal, please, there is no need to feel discouraged. The spiritual energy in this world is scarce, and the laws of reality are different here. As long as you feel yourself growing stronger, that is all that matters. Cultivation takes time. It needs a long period to truly bloom. It's fine. As long as my body is improving, I have a way to beat this death sentence. After everything I've been through lately, I've realized one absolute truth. Compared to the weight of life and death, every other problem in the world is tiny. Whether it's a messy breakup or losing someone close. Even losing a job means nothing if you're still breathing. If you break up, you find someone else. If you lose your job, you find a new one. The only thing you can never get back is your life. Without that, you have nothing. Suddenly, my stomach let out a massive growl. I told them to wait a moment while I headed straight for the kitchen to find food. I cooked up 3 massive bowls of noodles. I fried 10 eggs to go with them. I ended up using almost the entire pack of noodles. I gave the little ones their portions first. I devoured the rest, yet I only felt about 80% full. Every scrap of food in the house was gone. I'll have to figure out how to get to the city tomorrow to buy daily supplies. This is the first time I've felt this good in the 2 months since the breakup. In fact, it might be the first time in years I've felt truly happy from the bottom of my heart. Back when I was with Suji, I was mentally drained and my body was failing me. The crushing workload was eating me alive. The truth is, I wasn't happy at all back then. Maybe splitting up was actually the best thing that could have happened. It was better for both of us. With a full stomach and no more doubts, I went straight to sleep. I can't wait to continue my cultivation tomorrow. Meanwhile, in a dark corner of the city, Suji couldn't sleep, her blood boiling with rage at Chinfeng. I already told him we're done, yet he still goes and bothers my parents. Does he really think that's going to make me change my mind? All he's doing is making me hate him more. I'm never going back to him. Good riddance. The next morning, I woke up long before the sun even hit the horizon. I watched the dawn break over the mountains. I headed into town to stock up on some daily essentials. I rushed back home and dove straight back into my cultivation. Today, completing a full cycle was an hour faster than yesterday. As my body gets stronger, the time it takes for my internal energy to circulate drops. I can feel it. If I rest a few more days, I'll finally feel like a normal person again. The immortal elder watched me, stunned by the speed of my progress. You're a true genius, he said. A 1 in 10,000 talent in the world of cultivation. I shook my head and told him, it's nothing, I still have a long way to go. The immortal elder just smiled at my modesty. Even the little ones thought my talent for cultivation was getting ridiculous. In just 2 days, the pressure radiating from me was enough to make them choke. They weren't just flattering me, they truly believed I was a monster. Right, it's time for dinner. I bought meat today, so everyone gets an extra serving. I went into the kitchen and started steaming some white rice. I whipped up a plate of scrambled eggs with tomatoes. Then I stir-fried some green peppers with strips of pork. I finished it off with a simple cabbage and tofu soup. Just basic, home-cooked meals. I carried the food out to the garden to eat with the little ones. They don't have much of an appetite, though. Almost everything ended up disappearing into my own stomach. The energy in this food is still too low. I need to start buying high-protein stuff like beef. I was complaining about the lack of energy, but the little ones' faces were turning bright red. Their whole bodies were flushing, gasping that the energy was too much to handle. They looked at the plates like the food was more toxic than poison. I looked at them and asked, "Are you guys okay?" A few simple stir-fries were nearly killing them. Was it really that intense? "Don't worry about us, Immortal Senior," they managed to choke out. "We were just being greedy and ate way too much. We'll be fine once we digest it. This is a chance for us to grow stronger." They whispered that everything I touched turned into a powerful tonic that could make a man explode. If I ate this every day, no wonder my physical strength could crush entire realms. Immortal, truly, there are still so many things we don't understand. What kind of world is this? I really can't wrap my head around it. What kind of beings could survive here? The 9 little men struggled to their feet and sat cross-legged on the ground. They circulated their energy to digest the food they'd just eaten. It took 10 minutes for them to finally process the meal. The nameless sword immortal was the first one to wake up. I looked down at them and asked, "How are you feeling? Are you okay?" My voice boomed from high above their heads, echoing through the heavens. "Thank you for your concern, Immortal Senior," he replied. "I've not only digested the power, but my cultivation level has actually strengthened." In the lower realm, our progress had completely stalled. I never expected it to loosen up the moment we arrived in the immortal realm. "Thank you for granting us these immortal treasures. My gratitude is infinite." I just shook my head. It was just a home-cooked meal, yet they treated it like a divine elixir. Their standards are way too low. One by one, the little demon gods began to wake up, feeling the power surging through them. They couldn't hide their joy as they felt themselves growing stronger. I noticed the light radiating from their bodies had become much brighter than before. But honestly, I still felt like I could crush them all with a single finger. I thought about performing a full celestial cultivation cycle, but I'd be up all night. That didn't seem right, so I dropped the idea and relaxed. With nothing else to do, I grabbed a hoe to loosen up the soil. I started digging up the dirt in the yard, clearing the land. I've definitely grown stronger. I have so much more energy than before I started cultivating. Digging used to exhaust my brothers-in-law, but now it's effortless for me. I wonder if that terminal illness I have has been cured along with my progress. When I have some free time, I'll definitely have to go to the hospital for a checkup. I didn't stop there. I kept going until I had tilled every inch of dirt around the house. Other people use immortal cultivation to fight demons or defy the heavens and destiny. They walk a narrow, dangerous path through endless, cruel slaughter. And here I am, using my immortal cultivation just to till the earth. If word of this ever got out, other cultivators would laugh themselves to death. Fortunately, it seems like I'm the only one in this world actually cultivating immortality. Over the next few days, I stuck to my routine of cultivation and labor. I spent my time pulling weeds and digging up the soil. Beyond just the area around the house, there was still plenty of barren land nearby. Every day felt incredibly rewarding as I worked the earth. During this time, my uncle's family would drop by occasionally to visit. They watched me work, unaware of the power flowing through my hands. They never stay long, and nobody else has come by. There isn't a single message waiting for me. My phone remains completely silent. I can feel myself getting stronger every day. But it's depressing. I still haven't broken through the first layer of chi training. Their acting isn't bad, but I'm not that easy to fool. Fallen creatures. Pathetic, fallen things. That's all they are. Disloyalty is their brand, the very symbol of their cunning. I know these big shots who play with intrigue always have deep, hidden intentions. Look at that pitiful act. What kind of fallen creature would ever make a face like that? An old monster who has lived for ages is actually pretending to be miserable. Big boss, we are being sincere. Please, you have to believe us. We are truly starving to death here. If you give us something to eat, we will submit completely. We know we messed up. The 3 fallen creatures pleaded, feeling like they had never been this humble in their lives. In the Qian Kuan realm, who would ever dare to make them bow like this? It's been so many years that they've forgotten how to even beg. Naturally, this whole cultivation situation is becoming utterly absurd. That trio of beasts is still trying to mess with Li Kim Su. They're trying to play the immortal beauty of Kunlun and the others too. The sacred sword of the extreme Tao radiates an imposing light aimed right at the 3 fallen creatures. It's a warning to stop, or we'll exterminate all 3 of them on the spot. Seeing the blade, these great fallen creatures don't dare say another word, let alone keep scheming. They finally realize the 9 great saints aren't who they used to be. If they keep pushing, they'll be annihilated. The immortal elder feels a wave of profound sadness washing over him. I ignore the 3 fallen creatures, only regretting that I didn't ignore them from the very start. Oh, look at you, I say, all that showing off you did at the beginning. You said it was nothing, insisting you'd never surrender even if you died. So what are you doing now? Do you have some kind of problem? Inside, I also regret being so inflexible at the start. I shouldn't have spoken so definitively back then. We probably wouldn't be in this mess now. I only have my own ignorance to blame. I was young and inexperienced, and I closed off my own path. Now it's great. The immortal elder truly thinks we're just being stubborn. Even if we surrender now, he won't believe us. All we can do is watch the others eat with their mouths full. They talk about how delicious it is while they chew, explaining every wonder of the meal. It is pure torment, and it's impossible to tune it out. You want to eat? Then stop being stubborn and surrender already. If you do, you get the good stuff. Do they really think we don't want to? We already surrendered, but if you won't believe us, what are we supposed to do? I look at the determined faces of those 3 fallen creatures and don't say a word. I feel like luck isn't on my side today, so I just pick up the plates with a sigh and leave. I spend the night focused on purging the impurities from my body. The next morning, I carry breakfast to the Garden of Gods and Demons as usual. Splash. I've barely stepped into the area near the small tree. Suddenly, those three haggard, fallen creatures come sprinting toward me. They don't care about their dignity anymore. They throw themselves down and grab my legs. Immortal Elder, we surrender. We really surrender. Please, just give us something to eat or we'll starve. We'll submit to anything. We just need food and a place to stay. We'll do whatever you want. I stand there, completely stunned by the sight. The 9 great saints have never seen these monsters act like this before. Back in the Qian Kuan realm, they were arrogant tyrants. Now they're acting like clingy pets. Are these really the same fallen creatures from the legends? Why are they so different from what the records say? They're actually clinging to my legs and refusing to let go. I wonder what kind of conspiracy they're plotting now, so I tell them to let go. No, either you accept our surrender today, or you just kill us right here. We won't last until noon. We're so hungry, our very life force is fading away. If we don't replenish our energy, we really are going to die. We aren't plotting anything. If you don't believe us, let the 9 saints check our bodies. We're starving. You can refine our essence and blood right now to take control of our destinies. They've only gone 2 days without food, yet they're giving up this easily? I look at the 9 great saints, and seeing them nod, I know the deal is done. Where did that arrogance from a few days ago go? They swore fallen creatures would never be enslaved, unless food and housing were guaranteed, apparently. Fine, I believe you, but there's no need for all that complicated blood-refining stuff. Just know that if you try any tricks, I can erase you instantly. You can't leave this place anyway. Thank you so much, Immortal Elder. We wouldn't dare try a single thing, we promise. Finally, they were going to get a real meal. It had been a brutal struggle for them. Since these 3 fallen creatures submitted, they count as my people now. But because of their status, they aren't allowed at the table just yet. They have to wait for me and the 9 saints to finish eating before they get their turn. It's a warning to let them know that submission doesn't make them equals. If they want a seat at the table, they're going to have to earn it. Besides, this serves as a necessary punishment for their earlier behavior. They need to learn what it means to be respectful. The Saint of Science looks over at them. They're practically vibrating with anxiety. Saliva pools in their mouths, but they stay rooted to the spot like obedient dogs. They have to wait for me and the others to finish every last bite. They don't even care if this is an insult anymore. They've lost the capacity for pride. All they want is to eat. I catch them out of the corner of my eye while I eat, watching them wait so submissively. I can tell, these 3 fallen creatures have finally been broken in. I set my utensils down and say, you 3 can eat now. Thank you, Immortal Elder. Thank you. Black Killing, Black Dragon, and Black Phoenix shower me with desperate gratitude. They scramble toward the food like their lives depend on it. They shove massive bites into their mouths, acting like these ordinary eggs are the finest delicacies in existence. With the first taste, their eyes light up with pure shock. Inside, they're thinking, is this the food of the gods? A single egg is more than enough for a feast, even for the massive Black Kirin. Each one is as large as an adult's fist. Placed in front of them, the portions are actually quite substantial. The appetites of these 3 fallen creatures are usually bottomless, but even they won't be able to finish a single egg. The energy contained within that egg is enough to shock these 3 fallen creatures over and over again. This is the egg of a being from the immortal world, and it certainly lives up to its name. I can sense the laws of the immortal beast lineage within it, capable of awakening the primordial divine power in their bodies. Good God, what kind of divine beast did this egg even come from? These eggs are far more useful to these 3 fallen creatures than they would be to the 9 great saints. That's because, at their core, they are beasts themselves. The Black Kirin bites into the egg white, and it transforms into pure energy flowing through every inch of his body. His decaying life force is being replenished constantly, restoring his vitality in an instant. The exhaustion weighing down his entire body has vanished. After waiting so long, I'm finally seeing the reward for my efforts. The egg yolk contains even more concentrated energy than the white. The Black Phoenix is receiving benefits that are even greater than the others. She is gaining far more than the Black Dragon or the Black Kirin. Since eggs come from birds, her origin is essentially the same as the creature that laid this. She finishes half the egg, and the surge of power is so intense it's like she's being reborn. I can't believe this is actually happening right in front of me. I leave everyone watching in a state of absolute awe. Even I find it magical. It seems a shared origin can provide unexpected benefits. The Black Dragon and Black Kirin don't level up instantly like the Phoenix did, but the benefits they've gained are still massive, and now they're too full to take another bite. The 3 of them left reluctantly, their eyes lingering on the unfinished egg. This egg was a miracle cure for them, and any lingering resentment in their hearts vanished. They had originally submitted to me with a trace of dissatisfaction. They felt like they were merely enduring humiliation, but everything changed the moment they tasted it. With benefits this massive, they wouldn't just follow me, they'd do anything I asked. Thank you for your generous gift, Immortal. We are immensely grateful. The three fallen creatures bowed with deep respect, their surrender now absolute and sincere. No wonder the 9 great saints follow you. If we knew the food was this good, we would have joined you ages ago. They actually felt like they had wasted the last 2 days by resisting me. If they had just cooperated sooner, they'd probably be even stronger by now. I looked at them and said, since you're staying, we're family now. Find a place near the small tree. There aren't many rules here. Cultivate when you need to, and live your lives. I won't interfere, and don't worry about food, but you'll have to build your own houses. Don't worry, immortal. We came prepared for that. With those words, the Black Kirin pulled out a miniature mountain range with 9 distinct peaks. I stood there, completely stunned by what I was seeing. In the lower realm, this immortal mountain would have pierced the very clouds. It would span thousands of miles, yet here in the immortal realm, it shrank to fit my yard. I never expected to see the legendary wandering immortal mountain hidden by the laws of the great Tao. Even saints struggle to track it as it flickers in and out of existence without warning. And yet, here it was, right before our eyes. This was the forbidden zone that terrified the entire Qian Kuan realm. They never expected to see its full glory here in the immortal realm. If you're interested, you can move into the mountain too. We're all family now. The 9 great saints just shrugged, showing zero interest in the offer. Watching him unpack his treasures, they regretted not bringing their own homes along. I looked at the mountain and thought, what a waste of space. Honestly, I was much more interested in their other belongings. I wondered if these creatures from Sunsan carried any magical artifacts. Specifically, did they have something like a spatial ring? Having one would make my grocery runs so much easier. When the 3 fallen creatures heard me say that, their smug expressions froze instantly. I decided to let it go, but my appetite was growing alongside my cultivation. I had no idea why, but I needed to go buy more supplies. I needed everything. Seeds, rice, vegetables, meat, dairy, and spices. I gritted my teeth and finished the shopping list. It was way too much to carry alone. I'd have to borrow my uncle's car to get it all home. As I walked toward his house, I saw a notice from the city hospital. It said I was sick, cancer, that I didn't have much time left. My uncle sighed. No wonder he wanted to come back to the countryside. It's not just the breakup with Su Yi. He's suffering all alone. Hearing this, the eyes of the 9 great saints lit up with a sudden realization. They turned their gaze toward the fallen creatures, thinking of the loot they must have. The fallen ones are known to hoard the most treasures in the Qian Kuan realm, they whispered. The saints gloated at their misfortune, while the 3 fallen creatures looked bitter. The spatial gems they carried were supreme treasures, capable of holding an entire mountain. I saw them hesitating and thought, I don't like taking things people love. After all, a true gentleman doesn't snatch away another man's prize. I picked up my plate and started walking away, leaving them in their doubt. Inside, they were panicking, terrified that I might seek revenge for their hesitation. That spatial treasure was their race's symbol, refined over thousands of years. The saints scoffed, what a bunch of idiots. If they didn't rely on dark arts to boost their power, they'd be extinct by now. At the end of the day, they just aren't human. Feeling the disdain, the 3 fallen creatures erupted in a silent rage. You're only talking big because you met the immortal first, they hissed back. The Kunlun immortal maiden didn't argue. She just slapped them across the face. Being first is everything, she said. Now, let us teach you the rules of this world. You'd better listen and obey, or I'll crush anyone who dares to disrespect us from now on. The Kunlun maiden looked down on the 3 fallen creatures as the Black Kirin glared back, refusing to submit. If Senior Qinfeng hadn't spared your lives, do you really think you'd still be breathing? You still dare to look at me with those eyes? You're practically begging for death. In this world, the strong dictate reality, and the weak simply endure it. Since I was the strongest, the rest had to rely on their own power to speak, and the maiden wasn't above a little robbery. Hand over every magical treasure you have, or you'll have to answer to me. Why would you rob us if the great immortal himself didn't? The Black Kirin hissed, refusing to back down. Just because I'm stronger than you, does that mean I can't take what I want? Before the Kirin could finish, the maiden's foot, powered by a Kunlun spell, slammed him into the dirt. I forgot to mention, life in the immortal realm is very free, and I doubt the senior would care if I killed you. Why? The creature stammered in shock. Why are you all just standing there? Aren't you going to help? The Kunlun maiden called out to the other saints, who grinned and started closing in. Li Qin Xian, the Abyss Demon King, the Azure Emperor, and the others all stepped forward. They swarmed the 3 fallen creatures, delivering a brutal, one-sided beating. The once mighty beings were reduced to punching bags. They were forced to cough up every single magical treasure they owned just to make the pain stop. These 9 saints of the human race were acting less like heroes and more like common bandits. Spatial gems, panaceas, secret manuals, they stripped them of everything, useful or not. They were nothing but a pack of old thugs. The 3 fallen beasts had no way out against these 9 saints. Their cultivation was so overwhelming it was impossible to even dream of reaching it. If they didn't hand over the treasures, these ruthless men would actually kill them. The maiden cleared her throat and looked at the shivering creatures. Don't hold a grudge, she said. We're actually saving your lives. The Black Kirin hissed. You rob us of everything and call it salvation? Your IQ really is lacking, she sighed. Do you think we're keeping these for ourselves? These are for the senior. Tell me, have you paid him rent for living on his land? This entire territory belongs to him, and yet you've offered nothing in return. If you provide nothing, he has no reason to feel responsible for your survival. If he's in a bad mood, he could crush you with a single finger. Instead of complaining, you should be overflowing with gratitude. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next part. The senior took an interest in your spatial gems, and you didn't offer them up immediately? It's rare for an immortal to want anything from our realm. You should be honored. Only by being useful to him will he actually keep you in his sights. Why would he protect you if you bring him zero benefits? Adults understand that the world runs on mutual interest. Simple kindness can only sustain a relationship for so long. Only ties of mutual interest can guarantee a long-term partnership. I don't know how you've lived this long without learning a thing about how the world works. Hearing the saint's words, the three fallen beasts suddenly realized their mistake and felt a wave of deep regret. We should have offered our treasures to the immortal ancestor much sooner. Why were we being so stingy? It's no wonder they say humans are cunning. The way Li Kingswan and the others think is terrifying. I made my way to my uncle's house, finally feeling free from the shackles of work and finding my true self. Suddenly, I heard a scream for help and ran into the yard to find my uncle pinned down. An overturned tricycle was crushing him with all its weight. It was loaded to the brim with corn stalks, burying him completely. I could barely see the top of his head poking out from the mess. My uncle is a strong man, but he was helpless. In my desperation, I forgot my own illness and sprinted forward with massive strides. Xiaofeng, it's you. Go get help. You can't do this alone. My aunt hadn't even finished her sentence before I acted. I didn't wait for a crowd to gather. I gripped the bottom of the heavy tricycle with both hands. With one massive heave, the entire vehicle rose off the ground. I felt a surge of power I couldn't explain. Uncle, are you alright? Xiaofeng, he's gone, or is he? Was I really supposed to be sick? Is this what being terminally ill looks like? Where did this strength come from? I had just pulled with both hands, and I actually flipped the entire tricycle over. This vehicle, plus the corn stalks, must have weighed at least 500 or 600 pounds. Chen Feng, was supposed to be a dying man. The hospital's critical condition notice was very clear about that. Didn't it say I had a severe, incurable illness? It said my body would grow extremely weak, and as time passed, I'd be confined to a bed. It said even walking would become difficult until the day I died. But looking at myself now, I didn't seem to be in that position at all. I didn't feel sick. I felt healthier than ever. In the heat of the moment, I hadn't even thought about it, and I had accidentally revealed my true strength. Of course, I never really intended to hide it from my family anyway. I reached out to help my uncle up and asked, "Are you okay?" I'm fine, he chuckled. My foot got pinned, but nothing vital was hit. Don't worry. Why don't you go to the hospital for a checkup? It's not expensive to see a doctor. I'm telling you, I'm fine. It doesn't even itch or hurt. I was just stuck and couldn't move, that's all. Our Chen family is built tough. What are you so worried about? My uncle moved his whole body around, proving he was actually okay. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Xiaofeng, you've got too much strength. You ran so fast, then flipped that tricycle like it was nothing. Yeah, Xiaofeng, that thing is heavy. It takes at least 3 or 4 men to lift it. I just laughed and said, maybe I was just born with divine strength. I couldn't exactly tell them about my immortal cultivation, not yet, anyway. Besides, Uncle, didn't you just say the Chen family is built tough? My health is peaking. You're a brat who needs a beating, and a stubborn one at that, he joked. Please don't hit me, Uncle. You never did when I was a kid. I'd lose face if you started now. But then his face fell. Son, you've suffered so much. Why don't you just come and live with us? I know you're independent and have a strong character. But we're family. Family is never a burden. Come home. We can take care of you. He's right, Xiaofeng. My uncle's family always manages to give me this unexpected warmth. Uncle, Auntie, please don't worry. My health is perfectly fine. Do I look sick to you? I'm grateful, really. But look at me. I just flipped 500 pounds. What sick person can do that? But the hospital. But the hospital, they sent us a critical condition notice. A critical condition notice? I didn't even know hospitals actually sent those out to families. Either way, they definitely knew about my terminal diagnosis, but my condition had already stabilized through cultivation. Before, I was powerless against the cancer, but now, it's nothing to me. It must have been a scam or some kind of clerical error, I told them. Look at me. If I'm considered sick with this kind of strength, then nobody in the world is healthy. Uncle, Auntie, please don't worry. I'm fine. I only came back because I was sick of the city and wanted the quiet life. My uncle and aunt exchanged a long, skeptical look. Are you really okay? You're not just saying that to keep us from worrying. Or because you're afraid we'll ask for money. Son, I'm healthier than I've ever been. Besides, if I were actually dying, I wouldn't be polite about it. I'd be leaning on you guys for everything. Is that right? Well, thank God. That's wonderful news. When we heard the news, we were terrified. We were planning to finish harvesting the crops and head straight to the city to see you. You're really okay? That's such a relief. I could see the tension finally leave their shoulders as they relaxed. Those damn doctors are nothing but scammers. How could they lie to us like that? They kept muttering curses at the hospital, but their faces were glowing with genuine happiness. Uncle, Auntie, what work is left to do? Let me help. I'm rarely out here to lend a hand. No need. Xiaofeng, you're still young. Don't waste your energy on heavy lifting. Let your uncle handle it. I'm 27 or 28 years old, and yet, they still call me a child. I guess in the eyes of our elders, the younger generation never truly grows up. I insisted on helping, and with my new strength, I loaded a cart of corn stalks in seconds. It just so happens the grinding stone at the house fell over, my uncle said, and I can't lift it alone. If there's any heavy lifting, don't hesitate to put your nephew to work. I just smiled, stepped up, and reached out with a single palm. I hoisted that 500-pound grinding stone all by myself. The Chun family genes are powerful, my uncle cheered. You've got incredible strength, boy. Before I started cultivating, I could barely even budge that stone, let alone lift it. Seeing that they were finally at ease and no longer worried about my health, I borrowed the car to head over to my mother's place. I needed to go into town to stock up on some supplies. Once I checked everything off my shopping list, I returned the car to my uncle's house. Then, I headed back home to begin my daily cultivation. By the time I finished a full circulation, it was barely 4 in the afternoon. I walked out to the orchard and saw the Kunlun fairy and the nameless sword immortal facing off. We were the first to break through, the immortal said. Let's spar and see what we've gained. I looked at the Kunlun fairy standing there. She was breathtaking, and her proportions were absolutely perfect. Her figure was more impressive than any photoshopped influencer or perfectly angled movie star. There wasn't a single flaw in her appearance, making her more beautiful than anyone I'd ever seen. She stood there, radiating a presence that felt larger than life. I've wanted to learn the nameless sword immortal's way for a long time, she said, eyes sharpening. The Kunlun fairy was known for her dominant and unyielding nature. You don't become the lord of the lower realm just by having a pretty face. She was the greatest female immortal of the ancient era for a reason. The nameless sword immortal didn't hesitate and prepared his counterattack. He invoked the power of the 10,000 swords technique. A single blade suddenly split into 10,000 shimmering projections. Countless small white swords manifested behind his head, vibrating with lethal energy. They surged forward like an overwhelming wave toward the Kunlun fairy. She didn't flinch as the storm of steel approached her. She immediately cast the Kunlun immortal spell. Forming a seal with her hands, she created a massive sphere of light covered in prophetic runes. I noticed her power had increased since our fight with the spider, but the growth was still small. Under the shade of the small tree, the two masters clashed with everything they had. The nameless immortal and the fairy were already locked in an intense, high-speed battle. He pointed his finger, sending a flood of sword intent to drown her out. But as the flying swords hit her runic sphere, they were either repelled or shattered instantly. It was the Dragon Phoenix Shatterer of the Kunlun immortal. A monster shaped like a blue dragon shot out from her runic sphere, slamming into the nameless sword immortal. I thought to myself, the Kunlun fairy has truly reaped some incredible benefits. The nameless sword immortal formed a seal with his fingers, manifesting the intricate King Swan sword. A tiny, finger-sized flame ignited, and a massive blade condensed right in front of him. The giant sword and the blue dragon collided with violent force. With a deafening roar, both attacks shattered into pieces at the exact same time. The shockwave sent both the nameless sword immortal and the Kunlun fairy flying backward. I figured you out, she said, wiping her mouth. You aren't from this era at all. You're the reappearance of an ancient supreme being, the sword saint, Li Qingzuan, aren't you? The nameless sword immortal's Tao was thick with the aura of an ancient supreme. It was a presence the Kunlun fairy had encountered long ago. She remembered it vividly from a trial in a secret realm during her youth, a trial that had nearly cost her life. The Kunlun fairy truly possesses great wisdom, he replied with a calm smile. It seems I can't hide anything from you. I had suspected from the start that he wasn't from this era, and now he was confirming it. I had no choice, he continued. The ancients predicted the immortal path would only open now. So, I had to hibernate and wait for this moment. This was starting to involve a massive secret of the immortal cultivation world. But none of this seemed to matter to me as I watched them. They had hibernated for who knows how many years just to ascend to this blue planet. They were truly putting everything on the line for this one goal. Humph, the Kunlun fairy scoffed, her eyes cold. Before my path was solidified, I was ambushed by an ancient supreme being. I nearly died, and my legacy was almost extinguished right then and there. Since that day, I swore I would find those ancient remnants and have my revenge. Fairy, do not misunderstand me, Li Qingzuan replied calmly. I have always been honest and just. The one who attacked you is someone else. It's not that I fear your vengeance, but internal strife in this dangerous world is foolish. Right now, solidarity and survival are all that matter. I have never participated in the struggles of the Kankuan realm, and you know it. The words of a sage are like a sacred tripod. There is no need for me to lie. The Kunlun fairy shifted her gaze toward the other surrounding sages. I watched her wonder, could there be other ancient remnants hiding among them? Under her freezing stare, the other sages frowned but remained silent. They were all supreme beings with iron wills. None of them believed for a second that they were weaker than her, even if their opponent was the legendary first female sage of antiquity. I looked down at these little ones from above, amused by their petty conflicts. The crowd remained expressionless, like an ancient well without a single ripple. If she was a weak woman, then there were no strong women left in the world. I let out a silent laugh. There was no need to air out these private grievances. But a conflict left unresolved is a ticking time bomb. It didn't matter to me. I had no interest in their grudges or their petty wars. My priority was my cultivation and curing my cancer, not playing referee for these little ones. Li Qingzuan bowed, saying, "The senior is a man of reason and surely has no time for our trifles. I have a request, senior, though I do not know if I should speak it. My cultivation has peaked recently, and I wish to test my strength against yours. I ask if the senior could enlighten me with a bit of guidance." I stared at him. Did Li Qingzuan really just challenge me? I raised an eyebrow and asked, "You want to challenge me? Did I hear that right?" He flinched and stammered, It is not a challenge, exactly. I only wish for the senior to guide my path through a spar." He realized his previous words were far too reckless. If I truly accepted a challenge, I could kill him with one palm and no one would blink. A life or death challenge against me was suicide. The gap between us was heaven and earth. I looked at him coldly and said, "Fine, I accept your challenge." "No, not a challenge," he cried out. "I was wrong. I don't want to die. Senior, please, show me some mercy." "Don't worry," I replied. "Just give it everything you've got." I wanted to see exactly how much his powers had grown after his breakthrough. "And don't use the word challenge again. It makes me nervous." "Senior, please." Li Qingzuan unleashed the full force of his life's cultivation. The Qingzuan sword, myriad arrows. Countless flying swords materialized from thin air, swirling into a mass larger than a basketball. The sheer volume of the attack stunned every saint in the room. It was clear that when he fought the Kunlun fairy earlier, Li Qingzuan had been holding back. This power was on an entirely different level. The first sword saint of antiquity was finally living up to his name. But as that sphere of 10,000 swords reached the tip of the sky, I met it with a single finger and shattered the entire formation with a casual flick. The 10,000 swords immediately merged into one. The essence of the blade condensed into a single sword of pure light. Ancient runes covered the surface, blessed by the most refined essence. Li Qingzuan was even burning his own life essence to fuel the strike. The righteous path manifested upon the giant blade, which was barely wider than 2 fingers. Li Qingzuan's entire being fused with the weapon as sword patterns emerged across his skin. This was a vision from the ancient world, the greatest sword strike in history. It was a strike straight out of legend, like the birth of the heavenly emperor. Ancient runes were etched directly into his flesh. He transformed into pure essence, a sword strike far surpassing the power of any saint. Li Qingzuan had unexpectedly reached a new peak of victory. His hidden trump cards were terrifying. He truly was the first sword saint of antiquity. The saints watching the battle stood frozen in shock. The ultimate strike was unleashed. Li Qingzuan's body and soul were one with the blade. But that singular, blinding sword of light was shattered by a single finger. My middle finger, to be exact. His entire formation collapsed in an instant. Li Qingzuan fell from the heights of his power like a star crashing to earth. His connection to the Tao severed, he slammed into the ground. The onlookers could only stare with their mouths wide open. The senior immortal was just too much. He was beyond terrifying. Li Qingzuan used every trick in his arsenal, yet he couldn't survive a flick of my finger. I looked at him and asked, "Did you actually get stronger?" Because I didn't feel a thing. I wondered if his power-up was just too small for me to notice. Li Qingzuan looked at me, devastated that his total transformation meant nothing. In all honesty, I didn't feel a thing. How much stronger could he have really gotten? Looking at my face, they could tell I wasn't mocking him. I was just stating the truth. That realization made the young saint's skin crawl with fear. What kind of monster is this senior immortal? His power is beyond any logic or reason. The gap between those saints and me was proven once again. After chatting with the youngsters for a bit, everyone went back to their business. I took the seeds I bought at the market and started planting them in the soil. Following my own plan, I planted all the vegetables I actually enjoy eating. Usually, these take months to grow, and I used to fear I'd be dead before the harvest. But now, I have all the confidence in the world as I finish my work and head to bed. The next day, a persistent phone ring dragged me out of sleep. I fumbled around my pillow for a long time until I finally grabbed the phone. With my eyes still crusty from sleep, I muttered, "Hello? Who is this?" "You're seriously asking who this is, Chen Feng? Have you forgotten my voice, or do you just want to get fired? Get out of bed right now. Finish that work plan I sent you. The client needs it urgently, and if you ruin this, your bonus is gone." It was my old boss, and for a second, my instinct screamed at me to obey, but then I remembered. I quit. "I'm giving you 2 hours, he barked. "I want to see the results of that plan. Otherwise, I'm stripping you of every cent of your bonus." "Screw you, take the bonus. Who cares? I'm done working for you. Get lost and stop ruining my sleep. Are you sick in the head?" I spat the words out and hung up the phone immediately. Pure relief. That was the most satisfying conversation I've ever had with that man. It turns out, throwing your ethics out the window is incredibly fulfilling. My mood improved instantly. The phone buzzed again. It was him. I picked up, and he was screaming, "Chen Feng, you've got some nerve. How dare you talk to me like that? You don't want this job anymore, do you? Do you know how many people are begging for your spot? Pack your things and get out. You actually dared to insult me. So what if I did? You act like a big shot, but in that office, you're nothing. That pathetic monthly salary isn't charity. It's an exchange of my time for your money. You're just a bully with crossed eyes and a crooked nose. No wonder your wife left you for someone else." The worst part is you don't even know how ugly you are. You're like a toad in a ditch dreaming of a white swan. You're completely delusional. I realized then that people without filters are the happiest. Saying exactly what you hate feels amazing. You're finished, Chinfeng. You've offended me, and I'll make sure you suffer in this company. I'm taking every cent of your bonus and giving you the worst shifts. I'm going to make your life a living hell. Are you actually brain dead? Who cares about your stupid company? I quit ages ago. You're an idiot, aren't you? I didn't wait for an answer. I just hung up on him again. Now that I'm cultivating immortality, why would I ever go back to a desk? Even the morning sun looks better now. The world outside looks adorable, and I'm starting to suspect the real reason I was so miserable before. It wasn't the illness. It was the constant psychological oppression I forced myself to endure. The cancer was one thing, but years of being stepped on had rotted my spirit too. I left the battle with my old boss behind and moved on. Out of habit, I walked toward the vegetable garden. Every day, I went there to check on the progress. That was where the tiny people lived. After all, living in my garden is a great honor for them, but it's also incredibly dangerous. To them, stray cats and dogs are massive monsters that could attack at any moment. The little people wouldn't necessarily survive an encounter like that. The first thing I did every morning was check if they were still alive before starting my cultivation. Immortal Elder, you've finally arrived. I had barely reached the small tree when I saw them. The little people were waiting for me, looking anxious. Their eyes were usually full of light, but now they were clouded with panic and uncertainty. I could feel the tension in the air. Something had happened, maybe an animal attack. It's Li Kim Huan and the Sword Immortal. And Kunin, it looks like they're going to die. Immortal Elder, please, you have to look at them. They were attacked by a demonic monster. It's not just an injury, they're sick. Sick? What kind of excuse is that? Do ascended beings even get sick? I'd never heard of ascension causing illness, but then again, this group isn't normal. Other people's ascended beings can shatter the heavens and the earth. Mine are smaller than my finger. If they don't get sick, who will? What kind of serious illness could take down two ascended beings at once? The other saints quickly carried out the Kunlun Fairy and Li Kim Huan. They lay paralyzed on stretchers made of weeds, their energy completely drained. The woven weed stretchers were crude, but it was the best they could manage. Immortal Elder, please look. This terrifying disease almost killed them overnight. The upper realm is too dangerous. Monsters, annihilation rules, and now sudden plagues. Not even saints can resist this sickness. In the lower realm, we never even thought about getting sick. Our indestructible golden bodies were the envy of every cultivator. These two were dying, but I wasn't a doctor, and a human doctor couldn't help them anyway. Venerable Ancestor, they've been sick since last night. Their bodies alternate between ice and fire, their foreheads are burning, and they won't stop coughing. I leaned in to get a closer look at the tiny figures on the stretchers. It was no use, so I pulled out my phone and went back to the online monster forum. I posted a question: what if you had a kingdom of tiny people, and they got sick with alternating chills, high fever, sore throat, and a runny nose? How would you cure them? What is this? They're paralyzed in bed. Need answers fast. The first reply came: bro, you've read too many novels. Why not just say you're a cultivator? Are there any babes in this tiny country? If so, strip her down and do a full body exam. I recognized that ID. He was the same creep who suggested a body exam last time. What an idiot. If you opened that guy's brain, it would be nothing but filth. Then a vet replied, based on 13 years of experience, if they can't get up, they're in trouble. But as a veterinarian, I have a foolproof, technical plan for you. If I'm not mistaken, your little person just has a little case of the common cold, a few cold pills, and they'll be cured immediately. A cold? Was it really that simple? The thread devolved into a massive argument about whether a vet could treat humans. I ignored the chaos and turned off my phone screen. With the vet's advice in mind, I looked closer at the Kunlun Fairy and Li Kim Huan. It really did look like a cold. Did they catch a chill yesterday? A chill? Yes, a freezing wind blew through last night. We all ran for cover. But those two are stubborn, especially after you toss them through the air, Immortal Elder. They felt weak and pathetic, so they stayed outside to cultivate in the freezing wind. And that was it. They had literally meditated themselves into a fever. Autumn is setting in, and the nights are starting to get freezing. Even normal-sized adults catch colds easily, let alone these tiny, fragile people. Wait here, I told them. I'm going to prepare some medicine. I went back into my room and boiled a bowl of water. Then I pulled out a cold tablet I had left over from my own stash. There was no way these little guys could swallow a pill that big. I cracked the capsule open, poured the powder into the hot water, and stirred. Once it was mixed, I brought the medicinal soup back to the jar. I've made you some medicine to help you recover, I said. Drink up. Immortal Elder, what kind of divine medicine is this? It's medicine to cure your sickness, nothing more. Seeing my blunt response, the little people didn't dare ask anything else. But what happened next absolutely stunned them. They had no idea what kind of mystical brew I had given them. As soon as the two of them drank it, their condition improved instantly. To them, it was a miracle from the heavens, a potion that could raise the dead. They looked at me with even more worship, convinced I was an all-powerful god. In their lower world, they were considered saints and heavenly beings. But here, to them, I was the ultimate god. Seeing that the cold medicine actually worked, I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. If they recover, they'll become ascendants, invincible beings who can slice through the heavens and shatter the earth. But right now, my legendary ascendants have a major problem. A simple common cold almost took both of their lives. Tell me, aren't these mighty beings a bit of a handful? The Kunlun fairy took the medicine, broke into a sweat, and slowly opened her eyes to thank me for saving her life. Don't move, I told her. Just rest and stop your cultivation practice for now. Focus on getting healthy before you try to level up again. I didn't want them doing strenuous training and dropping dead from viral myocarditis or something. They looked confused by the term, but they obeyed my divine warning immediately. I realized I had been rushing them. Cultivation should be gradual, or the strain will cause problems. Once I saw the little people were safe, I gave them some flour cakes to eat. Then I grabbed a large piece of beef for myself and prepared to meditate. Suddenly, my phone started ringing again. What is wrong with my old boss? Did he not get enough of a scolding last time? I put the phone on silent, tossed it aside, and focused back on my breathing. I was determined to cultivate. I refused to be a man whose life force was fading away. I wasn't going to let myself be worn down by a petty former superior. After a full rotation of energy, my entire body felt incredible. Good. My strength had increased again, even if the speed was leveling off compared to the first few days. But progress is still progress, and my body felt even better than before. My tendons and bones were unlocked, and my blood was surging with life. I felt even stronger than I did before I got sick. I checked the clock. It was only a little past 1 in the morning. Completing a full rotation was becoming much faster than my previous attempts. This was a qualitative leap in my cultivation speed. It meant that in the future, I could complete 2 full rotations in a single day. My strength would double, and reaching the first level of chi refinement was right around the corner. But my former boss was still acting like a lunatic, blowing up my phone constantly. In just one morning, I had 23 missed calls from him. Had he actually become addicted to calling me? I was about to block his number, but when it rang again, I hesitated and finally answered. Hello? What do you want? Did you get scolded? Are you so unhappy that you want to insult me back? Don't humiliate yourself. You can't win this. Surprisingly, Chong Feng didn't explode. Instead, he spoke with a strangely kind tone. Little Feng, didn't we just have a small misunderstanding earlier? You know, it's really hard to find a good job in times like these. If you quit now, you'll struggle to find anything else. How about this? Just come back to work. I'll act like nothing happened, and I'll even pay your salary and attendance bonus for the time you were gone. It'll be like you just had a paid vacation. What do you think? I'm cultivating immortality now. Whoever wants that shitty job can have it, because I'm done being a servant. Fine, please, go find someone more capable. I have no desire to return to that shitty company, no matter how much you beg me to cooperate. Is the project falling apart? Did you finally realize nobody else can handle my position? Except for maybe that green intern you liked so much. Or those old foxes who kiss ass for raises, but don't actually know how to do the work. My words left my former boss completely speechless for a long moment. It seemed I had hit the nail right on the head. Little Feng, look, you know the company is going through a rough patch right now. Just help us out by coming back and finishing this one project. You can leave after that if you really want to, okay? He actually thought that old fox and the intern were geniuses who could replace me. He really believed they could fill my shoes effortlessly. But it was all talk. The second I walked out, the entire department went to hell. If you don't come back, this project fails, and the whole company might go under. I scoffed. Are you confused? What kind of relationship do you think we have? If your company goes bankrupt, why should I care? You didn't value me when I was there. They thought I was replaceable, and now that they're in trouble, they suddenly remember me? Screw that. I don't give a damn. I'm busy cultivating immortality. Little Feng, please don't be angry. I was blind to your talent before. How about this? If you come back, I'll double your salary. No, I'll triple it. Triple salary is generous, but it just proves how deep of a hole you've dug for yourself. I'm not an idiot. I'm not coming back just to be squeezed dry and tossed aside again. Chen Feng, don't be heartless. Remember who gave you a chance when you were unemployed? Who gave you the chance to learn? Who nurtured your growth and gave you all those benefits? Is this how you repay us? Why are you being so selfish? This guy seriously has a screw loose if he thinks work is anything more than a value exchange. Besides, my contributions to that company always far outweighed the crumbs they paid me. I was done listening to his nonsense, so I just hung up the phone. My tasks were handed over and my final check cleared, so I owed them absolutely nothing. A message popped up immediately. Xiao Feng, I was impulsive. What will it take for you to help us? I didn't even look at it, tossing my phone aside to focus on a high-protein lunch of thick steak. If I can keep eating like this every day, my cultivation progress will skyrocket. I finished another full heavenly rotation of my internal energy. I opened my eyes and slowly exhaled a cloud of stale, gray air. The flow was perfect today, no blockages, just smooth energy moving like oiled machinery. I stood up, feeling a surge of vitality coursing through my entire frame. I threw a few random punches, and each one let out a sharp crack as it broke the air. It's not just raw strength. My skin has become incredibly resilient to scratches and abrasions. If I can take this to the very end, what kind of power will I hold? Will I be like the legends, plucking stars and holding the sun? That's the life I want. I shouldn't get ahead of myself. It's better not to aim too high just yet. The path of cultivation is brutal, and few ever reach the level of the legends. Becoming that powerful is probably harder than getting into the world's top universities. My latest heavenly cycle only took 3 hours, compared to the full day my first one required. My old boss Wong is calling again. This guy seriously doesn't know when to quit. I'll call you, Ancestor, okay? Please, I'm begging for your help. Just this once. If you can just fix this program failure for me, I'll do anything you ask. I considered blocking him immediately, but then a better idea crossed my mind. Fine, pay me 100 times the standard expert consulting fee, or don't bother me. Ancestor, you're finally talking. But 100 times? That's insane. 100 times. No haggling. Say one more word, and I'm blocking you for good. No. Fine, 100 times it is. He used to be such a submissive pushover, but now he's squeezing me for every cent. Transfer the money first, then I work. If you don't like it, forget the whole thing. I'll do it. They say you shouldn't doubt the people you use, right? I trust your integrity. And to be clear, that 100-fold price is after taxes. I couldn't believe how calculating I'd become. Everyone used to call me a soft touch. Was I just pretending to be a lamb before, or did I finally wake up to how the world works? So, do we have a problem or not? No, there's no problem at all. I was actually going to suggest 100 times the after-tax rate myself. Manager Wong forced an awkward, strained laugh. Even through the screen, I could hear the hesitation in his voice. The guy probably felt worse than if he'd just swallowed a dead fly. Picturing Manager Wong's miserable face right now gave me a surge of pure satisfaction. I knew he was hurting, and that made me feel great. Then it's a deal, I said, ending the conversation. A notification popped up. Manager Wong had transferred 210,000 yuan to my account. I used to slave away for months hoping to earn that much, but now, it just fell into my lap. With this money, I could finally focus on living and cultivating in the countryside without a single worry. I walked back into my room and powered up my old computer. I opened the program file Manager Wong had sent over. There it was, the familiar, dense rows of numerical code I hadn't seen in ages. This was my life's work, the result of countless sleepless nights and grueling days. I actually had to admire my former self for managing a project of this scale. Fixing the bugs and errors was going to be child's play for me. Since I wrote every line of this code, I knew exactly where the failure was hidden. My fingers flew across the keyboard, tapping out the corrections in a rhythmic blur. I was finished in exactly 2 minutes. I just made 210,000 yuan in the time it takes to brew a cup of tea. I paused for a moment, thinking it through. I didn't send the processed file to Manager Wong immediately. Instead, I called him and said, the problem is actually quite serious. I don't think I can have this fixed in less than a week. A week, he gasped. Brother phone, please, can't you go faster? This is urgent. I see, I replied. I'll push myself then. 5 days, that's the absolute limit. Suddenly, a notification chimed, a digital red envelope from Manager Wong for 8,888 yuan. Brother phone, please, think of something. See if you can't speed it up just a bit more. Manager Wong was certainly being generous today. Since he was playing nice, I decided to give it my all too. 2 days, I told him. I'll work through the night and have it ready in 2 days. Brother phone, you're so loyal. Why didn't I realize how reliable you were before? Thank you, seriously, thank you so much, brother phone. If I get the chance in the future, I'll definitely make it up to you. It's good that you know, I said. That's all for now. I'm getting to work. Right. I won't disturb you then. I hung up and went to the kitchen to happily start on dinner. On the other side of the line, Manager Wong probably thought I was working myself to death. If he knew I'd finished the whole thing in 2 minutes, he'd lose his mind. While I was relaxing, a woman named Yugi was seeing off some men in suits at a restaurant. Those men were dripping with arrogance, acting like emperors out for a night on the town. Yugi followed them with a constant smile, personally opening their car doors. Take care, Manager Lin. Safe travels, Manager Lin, she chirped. As soon as their car pulled away, the act dropped. She wiped away that fake smile, but the genuine joy on her face was obvious. Another sale closed. With the commission calculated, that's 2,500 yuan. I'm definitely hitting 10,000 this month. Then, her thoughts drifted. I wonder what Shin Feng is doing right now. That hillbilly is probably out tilling the dirt. What kind of future is there in a village? My commission from a single sale is more than he earns from 3 months of farming. She sighed to herself. He really is a hopeless case. No ambition at all. I'm so lucky I broke up with him. It was the best decision of my life. To her, Chun Feng and she no longer belonged to the same world. She imagined that the next time they met, their social status would be worlds apart. But what Yugi didn't know was that I hadn't fallen into poverty back in the village. I had just taken a single job and cleared over 200,000 yuan. Yet, the money wasn't the biggest shock. It was the thrill of cultivation and feeling myself grow stronger. 2 days passed by in the blink of an eye. Suddenly, with a thunderous boom, an intense golden light erupted around me. I felt an inexhaustible power surging through my veins, enough to kill a bull with one punch. My spirit soared as the old man gasped. Immortal, you've reached the first level of chi refining. After I reached this breakthrough, the little spirits felt an unprecedented pressure. It was a crushing weight coming directly from my bloodline. I felt like a high-level primordial beast, like a wild creature from ancient Babylon staring them down. They stood there trembling with their weak lineages. I muttered to myself, so, I really have reached the first level of chi refining. The power surging through me was unlike anything I'd ever imagined. The ascended cultivators watching me were in a state of total shock. This version of the first level was nothing like the one they understood. This was the true chi refining of the immortal world. I wondered why the Golden Core masters in the city hadn't progressed in so long. It turns out my cultivation path far exceeds their limited understanding. If this isn't the chi refining they know, then what on earth am I cultivating? It's unprecedented, something never seen before. I asked the old man, what happens next? There won't be any problems, right? We don't know for sure, he replied, but you'll be unimaginably strong. These little men teaching me don't even recognize my current state. I need to find time to go to the hospital and check if my cancer is still there. Venerable immortal, it's because you are cultivating with a true immortal body, they whispered. If my power kept scaling like this, the 9 sages would have already conquered this world. How could they possibly be this weak? At the first level of chi refining, I feel like my body has evolved into something beyond human. I can hear a cricket chirping 100 meters away and pinpoint its exact location. I can spot its tiny body hidden deep within the messy grass at a single glance. If I threw a punch now, even Mike Tyson would have to call me boss. I sent the completed file over to Manager Wong immediately. He replied instantly, Brother Foam, you're so punctual. You finished even earlier than promised. He was ecstatic, telling me he'd buy me a drink to thank me for saving the project. I told him we were even and that I was going to get some much-needed rest. Go ahead, brother, he said. Don't push yourself too hard. I closed WeChat and decided to take a walk around the village. That's when I found a man pinned under a massive boulder near the pond. It was Uncle Chun, and miraculously, the old man was still breathing. I called out to him, and he struggled to open his eyes. He gasped, help, Chen Feng, save me. I'm trapped under this rock. I can't get out. Go get the villagers, he begged. Get me out of here. I opened my mouth to say something, but it was too late. Uncle Chun got so worked up that he passed out cold right in front of me. If I wait for the villagers to arrive, he'll be a corpse by the time they get here. I don't know if you're lucky or unlucky. Unlucky to be crushed by a rock, but lucky you ran into me. My strength has been skyrocketing lately, and I keep running into these strange situations like I have protagonist energy. Getting stronger apparently means finding trouble just so I can use my power to solve it. Is this just the law of cultivation? I can't imagine how much worse it'll get. Will my life turn into one of those brain-dead urban novels? Like going to the store for a carrot only to have a clerk mock me and say I can't afford it. Or just walking down the street. There's always going to be one or two thugs who come out of nowhere just to give me a hard time. Looking for a beating, just so I can prove my worth as the main character. Or taking a girl shopping and having some rich brat show up to compete for her attention. I crouched down and dug my fingers deep under the edge of the massive boulder. I heaved with everything I had, and the stone actually began to rise slowly from the ground. This thing is even heavier than I imagined. As the pressure on his chest eased, Uncle Chin slowly blinked his eyes open. He wondered if this was that final flash of lucidity people get right before they die. He thought he was hallucinating being saved while his life slipped away. He turned his head to check on the boulder. He saw me like an ant lifting a mountain, slowly pushing the massive rock off of him. Uncle Chin's jaw practically hit the floor in pure shock. Damn it, I really am having a final flash of lucidity. I'm actually dying. What am I even looking at? Is that really Chun Feng pushing that boulder? His nerves were fried, his vision blurred, and unable to process the reality of it, he passed out again. Talk about bad luck. I ignored Uncle Chin's erratic behavior and finally shoved the rock completely away from both of us. Once it was done, I grabbed my phone and called for help, telling them Chun Daniu was injured. The word spread fast that Chun Daniu was hurt. People started going door to door throughout the village. They rounded up all the strongest men they could find. A group of them came rushing to the scene as fast as they could. I greeted them calmly. Hey, uncles and aunts. Uncle Chin looks like he's in bad shape, so we shouldn't move him recklessly. We need a stretcher to get him to the hospital, and since I didn't have any tools, I had to wait for you. Everyone stood there, stunned, wondering how he got out if he was supposed to be trapped under a giant rock. I lied and told them the stone hadn't actually pinned him down. I explained that the boulder pressing on him must have had an unstable center of gravity. I told them it was leaning toward the other side, so I just pried it open with a hoe. I thought he was a goner, but fortunately, he got lucky. Of course he did. It was the perfect cover. Did they really think I could lift a rock weighing several tons? If that were possible, I wouldn't be human, I'd be a monster. Hurry and get Uncle Chun to the hospital. Don't wait. Saving him is what matters most. But right at that moment, Chun Daniu's eyes snapped open. He looked at the crowd surrounding him and finally locked eyes with me. A flood of memories hit him, and he pointed at me, screaming in a panic. Chun Feng is a monster. He's not human. He lifted the rock. He actually lifted it. Damn it, he's a real monster. The villagers looked at the state he was in and didn't take a word of it seriously. Oh, poor Daniu. He's already lost his mind. The trauma must have been too much. Get him to the hospital before his brain is permanently fried. You're right, uncles. Since you guys are here, I won't go to the hospital with you. I have things to take care of. Go on then, kid. Go handle your business. Just like that, I headed back home to continue my cultivation. The next day, I discovered that the time it took to complete a heavenly cycle had shortened again. It hadn't changed since it first dropped down to 3 hours. After breaking through the first level of chi refinement, I didn't expect to see progress so soon. and it wasn't just the time. Every time I completed a cycle, the power was even greater. The energy is more abundant than before, and if I keep going at this speed, in no time, that massive rock from yesterday won't even be a challenge. I won't just be pushing it, I'll be lifting it over my head. Now that makes sense. That's what cultivating immortality is all about. I figure my ALS is almost gone, so I need to find time for a checkup. After I finished washing up, Chindaniu's family arrived with gifts. Nothing expensive, just some farm eggs, 2 big roosters, and homegrown produce. I asked them, how is Uncle Chin doing? Luckily it's nothing serious, but he keeps insisting you lifted a giant boulder. I figured he was just in shock and would be fine after some time at Hongqing First People's Hospital. I headed straight to the oncology department. Thanks for watching the video. Doctor, what do you think of this lab report? Are there still issues with my health? I have never seen a lab report this strange in my entire career. Doctor, what's wrong? What's happening to my body? Your body is perfectly healthy. But there is also one massive problem. I frowned and asked, what kind of nonsense is that? Is it healthy or not? Theoretically speaking, your incurable cancer has worsened countless times over. The numbers are staggering. A normal person with these results would already be a corpse. Even if they weren't dead, they certainly wouldn't be able to move. They would be on the verge of their very last breath. But not only are you alive, you're absolutely bursting with vitality. Looking at your physical tests, every metric far exceeds the health standards of a normal person. By all accounts, you should be a perfectly healthy man. Your health and your sickness are completely tangled. It's like looking at the bodies of 2 different people. In all my years, I've never seen a case like this, extremely healthy and extremely terminal at the same time. I asked him, will this affect my daily life? Do you feel like it's affecting your daily life? He countered. If not, then there you go. As long as it doesn't interfere with your life, you're normal. He talked a lot, but he didn't actually say anything of substance. It looked like I was going to have to be my own doctor. I took the report, thanked him, and prepared to leave. Oh, by the way, remember to come back for checkups, even if this doesn't feel like it's affecting you. Though, with your disease numbers being this terrifying, even if it gets worse, there's nothing we can do. It seemed like frequent checkups were going to be a waste of time anyway. But I couldn't help feeling a surge of curiosity. Your case is textbook material, and I want to see how long you can actually last. I left the hospital and, after several transfers, finally made it back home. Physically, I felt fine, but the cancer was supposedly ravaging me, leaving me with a confusing paradox. Based on how I felt, I wasn't going to die, even if the report said I was terminal. The moment I stepped inside, the first thing I did was check if the little people were safe. They were living happily under the tree, some playing chess, while others practiced sword dances. A few were drinking and reciting poetry, while others carefully reinforced their tiny homes. Some were even farming vegetables and planting flowers to decorate the area. This group of ascendants finally realized that cultivation and life are long-term games. But as I watched them, a faint popping sound shattered the peace of their world. 3 small black holes suddenly tore open around the base of the little tree. The little ascendants heard the noise and immediately took to the air. They hovered in front of the black holes, their faces grim. More people are ascending, one of them muttered. But who could it be? We scanned the entire Qingquan realm before we left. There shouldn't have been any saint-level cultivators left back there. Perhaps some used secret treasures to hide their aura, waiting for us to clear the path first. Suddenly, 3 figures slid out from the spatial tunnels of the black holes. The portals snapped shut, leaving the newcomers standing before the group. I looked down at the 3 cultivators who had just ascended. When the others saw their true forms, the expressions of the 9 great saints shifted to pure shock. It's you certainly hid yourselves well. These 3 weren't human at all. In reality, they were 3 distinct, dark beasts. The 3 beasts stood their ground and glared at the 9 great saints. So, the 9 great saints aren't dead yet. The 3 newcomers were twisted versions of divine creatures. They were corrupted, darkened beasts from the abyss. There was the black blood Qilin, the dark magic dragon, and the black feathered phoenix. These 3 were infamous fallen beasts who broke the laws of the great Tao. They had committed countless atrocities in the Qingquan realm. They were the public enemies of the entire cultivation world. Fine, since you've ascended to this place, you can die here. With what? You and what army? The black Qilin sneered as his body began to shift. He grew rapidly until he was the size of an adult's fist. The Qilin, the dragon, and the phoenix, 3 fallen beings, radiating incredible pride. Even though they just ascended and were outnumbered, they didn't show a hint of fear. Li Qingshan and the others looked at them like 3 country bumpkins who just walked into the city. I looked down and asked, do you have a history with them? The 3 fallen beasts heard my voice like a thunderclap and looked up at my massive form. They froze in shock, wondering what kind of human monster could be this large. The 3 creatures quickly huddled together, their agility on full display. The 9 great saints heard my question and immediately turned toward me. They looked stunned, remembering the blood feuds they shared back in the Qingquan realm. But now they were in the immortal world, standing on my territory. They knew they had no right to decide the fate of these 3 beasts. Li Qingshan bowed and said, there are grudges, but that is all in the past. The saints apologized for their impatience, realizing they shouldn't have spoken over me. The 3 fallen beasts watched the saints act so submissive and turned pale with disgust. The Black Qilin let out a mocking laugh that echoed through the air. We thought that even as enemies, you were warriors worthy of our respect, he spat. But you're just a bunch of spineless cowards. Some great saints you are. To think you'd willingly become slaves to an immortal, you aren't fit to be compared to us. We would rather die in battle than lower ourselves like you have. Where is your honor as humans? How can you accept being mere servants? Li Qingshan and the Kunlun fairy didn't get angry. They served me by choice, not by force. What pure, unadulterated ignorance. If it weren't for the immortal senior's mercy, you wouldn't be standing there barking at us. Their arrogance likely came from the fact that my cultivation level was beyond their comprehension. These three fallen creatures couldn't see me for what I truly was. They couldn't sense the crushing pressure I exerted, so they felt no fear. They honestly believed the 9 great saints were the same weaklings they knew before. Li Qingshan gritted his teeth and said, Immortal Senior, I can't take this anymore. Please, give the order so I can kill them where they stand. I shook my head and replied, there's no need for that. It's not easy to ascend to this realm. I looked at the Black Qilin and thought, this one looks like a dog. I could raise it like a pet. I pointed at the next one and said, that one looks like a bird. I'll keep it as a bird. And the last one could be raised just like a common pet snake. It's actually quite interesting. Biodiversity is important for my garden of gods and demons. Truth is, I've always had a soft spot for dragons, phoenixes, and qilins. Maybe it's just a Huaxiao thing, having a natural predilection for mythical beasts. Last time I cleaned the orchard, I saw old bones and regretted not having a live one to raise. Now that I have the chance, I'm definitely going to fulfill that wish. I chuckled to myself, thinking, this is a good start. Li Qingshan nodded immediately and said, the senior is right. It will be very entertaining to keep them around as pets. But these pets aren't exactly obedient. Hearing my words, the 9 great saints immediately brightened up. Raising fallen creatures as pets? Who in the Qinkuan realm would even dare to think that? Who could actually force these monsters to be pets? Hearing this changed everything. The heavy weight pressing down on the hearts of the 9 great saints suddenly vanished. But the 3 fallen creatures were livid, glaring at me with pure hatred. Damn you, what an absolute insult to the fallen race. I'll make you pay the ultimate price for those words. Even if you are an immortal, we are going to slaughter you. You 9 despicable scumbags of the Qinkuan world, watch closely. Watch how we exterminate an immortal. We aren't useless cowards like you. As the main fighting force of this world, you don't have a shred of dignity left. These 3 little ones have quite the temper. They're trying to put on a show. Meanwhile, the 9 great saints crossed their arms, waiting to watch the fallout. The 3 fallen creatures rose into the sky side by side, defying the very world. They acted as if they were the center of the 9 heavens and 10 earths, radiating indomitable pride. They looked down on the great saints, and they even looked down on the beings of the immortal realm. It's no wonder this trio of fallen beasts, the dragon, phoenix, and qilin, terrorized the lower realm. Even a saint would be annihilated upon meeting them. They truly believed they were invincible. They carried that same arrogance toward the immortal realm, ready to savagely kill anyone in their way. Even if we come from the Qinkuan world, and even if we must fight the rules of the immortal realm, we remain invincible in this world. Come and try us. What does it matter if you're from the immortal realm? Killing immortals is my greatest desire. The 3 fallen creatures stared me down, their battle intent surging until it practically materialized. I didn't even slow down. Senior, I can't take this anymore. How about I deal with these 3 for you? The fallen creatures turned their gaze back toward the 9 great saints. They saw the saints smiling at them as if they were watching 3 circus clowns. It was unacceptable. We are supreme beings. What does that look for? Are you begging for death? I truly don't understand what makes them so arrogant and untamable. I have no use for these 3 little things, even if they are powerful in their own world. I actually want to see how their combat power compares to that of common insects. We have looked down upon the human world for ages, and you dare to compare supreme beings like us to insects? Don't expect a quick answer. Let's not waste time. Let's annihilate him right now. Let him learn that fallen creatures cannot be insulted. You will suffer 10,000 calamities. The dragon, the phoenix, and the qilin were absolutely livid. They immediately unleashed massive supernatural powers to strike me down. They carried the force of a thunderclap, acting as if they could destroy heaven and earth. They truly believed in this power. They thought even an immortal would turn pale with fear just by witnessing it. 3 fallen creatures, like 3 small bulbs emitting black light, slammed right into me. I have to admit, it was a magical sight. It was my first time seeing black light, and I wondered, does black light even count as light? But before I could give it much thought, the 3 fallen creatures rushed me. They charged with everything they had. I simply snapped my fingers 3 times, and that layer of black light began to peel away. The protective aura surrounding those 3 fallen beings shattered instantly. They tumbled to the ground, one after the other. In perfect unison, all 3 of them spat out a mouthful of pitch-black blood. 3 pairs of eyes looked up at my massive form in the sky with pure horror. They called themselves invincible, but their god-slaying light was broken by a mere snap of my fingers. They must have been thinking, what kind of deity is this massive immortal? He's terrifying. I hadn't even used magic, just the raw, cold force of my fingertips to nearly annihilate them. The 9 saints watched closely, looking at the fallen creatures like they were a punchline to a joke. The Black Qilin finally realized why the saints had been acting this way. They had been completely relaxed from the very beginning. These people already knew exactly how this would end. I thought to myself, they really aren't stronger than insects, are they? I almost killed them by accident. Even though I was holding back as much as possible, my strength was still too much for them. Hearing my words, the 3 fallen beings looked like they were about to choke on their own rage. It wasn't that I was trying to insult them. It was just that they were far too weak. If I wanted them to vanish from existence, I would have ended their lives a long time ago. Even without me lifting a finger, my saints could have annihilated them. Hearing this, the Black Qilin trio refused to accept the humiliation. They thought, we might not beat the immortal, but we can still crush you weaklings. The 3 fallen creatures lunged forward in a desperate frenzy, betting their very lives on one final, reckless attack. But they soon realized the Kunlun fairy's power was far beyond their comprehension. With a sudden, violent explosion, the 3 fallen creatures were sent flying backward. They didn't have the strength to offer even a hint of resistance. When they finally stabilized, they were battered, broken, and covered in deep wounds. The Kunlun fairy had truly reached a terrifying level of power. The immortal realm was proving to be truly extraordinary. Their situation had turned critical in an instant. They thought, we have to escape if even these useless saints are this strong. Given enough time, we could reach the same summit, and maybe even surpass them. We can even take down that massive immortal. Inside the Black Qilin's heart, he thought, we just need time to grow. I and my 9 great saints had already been marked as their mortal enemies. 30 years on the east side of the river, 30 years on the west. The Black Qilin winked at the dragon and phoenix, swearing to return this humiliation one day. After years of fighting together, the trio shared a silent understanding. They knew exactly what that look meant. Staying here was suicide. It was better to run than to die in this place. They would wait for their chance at revenge, somewhere far away in the future. Once the 3 corrupted creatures finished their internal ranting, they turned and fled at maximum speed without looking back. I watched them go, thinking, why do I feel like the big villain here? They even pulled out that cliché about the river changing course every 30 years. East side, west side, it didn't matter what they screamed. The truth was, they completely misunderstood the situation. In the immortal realm, without a high immortal's protection, those 3 idiots won't last 3 hours. That direction is a forbidden zone where no outsider can survive. By escaping, that beastly trio had just signed up for a lifetime of pursuit by my saints. But then they realized I wasn't even moving. My 9 great saints didn't budge either, just watching them flee with mocking eyes. Inside, the beast snarled, go ahead and laugh. I'll kill you all once I've grown stronger. That trio of fallen creatures hadn't even finished plotting their revenge, when suddenly, their entire bodies went weak and they plummeted, straight toward the hard ground. A suffocating sensation gripped their lungs. This was the rhythm of a true downfall. We're going to die, they realized in terror. What was happening? Why was this happening now? The beastly trio had only just ascended to the immortal realm. Naturally, they had no idea how the rules of this world actually worked. Rule 1. Never leave the range of the Chaos World Tree, or the realm's laws will erase you. Rule 2. Never provoke the giant, because he can wipe out chaos demons and ascendants with a single finger. Rule 3. Stay on the giant's good side, or a random chaos beast will tear you apart. Rule 4. You need the giant's protection, or you'll literally starve to death in this realm. Rule 5. This is the giant's territory, and he alone decides if you live or die. Rule 6. Look at the fallen ones who came before you and see how they ended up. In short, don't run aimlessly, don't offend the wrong people, and above all, please the giant. Those 3 idiots had just broken every single rule of survival at once. But a person can't afford to be an idiot. Seeing the damage they caused in the Qinkuan realm, those 3 fallen creatures, whose power once made experts pale, were now hitting a wall at every turn. My 9 great saints were gloating, feeling a massive sense of relief and superiority. After all, they had ascended before those 3 fallen beasts. Back then, my 9 saints were just as lost, knowing nothing about the immortal realm. They had practically fumbled their way through the dark to get here. Now, seeing others as ignorant as they once were gave them a twisted sense of satisfaction. It's like getting soaked in the rain because you didn't have an umbrella, then wanting to break everyone else's umbrella just so they get soaked too. The beast screamed at me. What kind of magic are you using? Do you dare to let us go? You're only winning because you're a creature of this realm. If we had your status and your time, you wouldn't stand a chance. If you have the guts, give us 1,000 years. We only need 1,000 years to kill you. At this point, they were just using words to try and bait me, thinking a powerful person would fall for a cheap provocation. I looked at them and replied, you're right. If you had my conditions and my environment, you'd definitely be better than me. The beasts froze. What kind of move was this? They told me I wasn't as good as them, and I just admitted it so generously? No, that wasn't how this was supposed to go. I was supposed to be furious and indignant. I was supposed to shout, you're just insects. Since you're not convinced, I'll let you go and give you time to catch up just to show you the gap between us. That's the script where the arrogant master releases the 3 brothers. Then the brothers would endure the humiliation, cultivate for thousands of years, and come back to kill me, or run away if they couldn't. Either way, the 3 brothers would have made a clean escape. But why aren't they following the script? I admitted I wasn't as good as them. These Immortal Realm creatures are too cunning. They saw through the plan and ruined everything by being humble. My life was slipping away, drifting out of the reach of the little tree's protection. They grew weaker by the second, feeling the cold grip of death for the first time. This was no joke. But I wasn't going to let them die just yet, so I reached out and grabbed them. I tossed the three little beasts back into the tree's protected zone. The feeling of suffocation vanished instantly, like being brought back from the dead. They shouldn't die here. It would be a waste to let them perish so easily. They told me they wouldn't die, but recovering their strength wouldn't happen overnight. One snorted, "Hypocrite, don't think you can cage us like these servile humans. We'll never be your slaves." "That's right," the second chimed in. "Don't ever expect us to surrender. Fallen creatures will never be slaves," the third roared. What a joke. I almost laughed out loud. Were these three always this stupid? I used to be so cautious around these idiots. It was actually embarrassing. They really thought their tenacity as fallen beings would let them resist this divine relic. Did they think I threw them back just to imprison them? The Immortal Realm would kill them in a heartbeat. Of course, these fallen beasts wouldn't understand that. They probably thought I was lying. I looked down at the tiny figures in my Godfiend Joy Park. These three seemed incredibly proud and difficult to tame. "Don't worry, Master," one of my saints said. "Let them starve for a few meals, and they'll learn who's in charge." "You think starving us for a few meals will make us surrender? You underestimate fallen creatures." "Humph. We are immortal and indestructible. We moved past the need for food ages ago. You're comparing us to inferior beasts that actually need to eat." I felt a massive headache coming on as I realized these three weren't going to listen to reason. I even went online to search for tips on how to break in a stubborn pet. The forums were full of trolls and weirdos arguing about whether the pets were female or not. A bunch of idiots. I ignored the comments and decided to handle this my way. If I kept smiling and offering gifts to these arrogant, fallen beings, I'd look like a desperate simp. And I refused to be anyone's lapdog. So, I decided to let them starve first. "Fine, do whatever you want. If I ever surrender, I'll take your last name," one barked. "I don't need a beast carrying my family name. Besides, it was already time for my own dinner." I ignored the curses of the fallen creatures and started cooking. Since that 200,000 arrived in my account, my financial situation has been more than comfortable. My kitchen was stocked with beef, chicken breast, eggs, and shrimp. I sliced up 1.5 pounds of fresh beef and threw it in the pan. Then I cracked 5 eggs and tossed in 10 spicy chilies. I added a handful of plump shrimp to the mix. Finally, I grabbed a variety of fresh vegetables from the fridge. I chopped up some crisp lettuce and cabbage to finish the meal. I even grabbed some tomatoes to round out the feast. Lately, as my cultivation level rises, my appetite has become absolutely massive. Once the cooking was done, I carried the steaming plates out to the garden. The 9 great saints rushed forward the second they saw me. "Thank you so much, Immortal," they chirped in unison. I told them not to worry about the formalities and just eat. The little guys didn't need to be told twice. They started feasting immediately. Meanwhile, the 3 fallen creatures were already starving. It turns out that in this world, their ability to survive without food had completely vanished. They watched us eat with eyes full of pure torture. The rich colors and the savory aroma of the beef were overwhelming. The scent was absolutely intoxicating. The black Chelan visibly swallowed his saliva. Suddenly, his stomach let out a loud, betraying growl. The look of pure embarrassment on his face was priceless. "Stay strong, brothers. He's trying to break our resolve," the black dragon hissed. He acted tough, but his eyes were practically glued to the plates. "Exactly. We are supreme fallen beings," the third one added. "We won't be swayed by a few simple ingredients." But the drool pooling in the dragon's mouth told a completely different story. How could we ever stray from our spiritual path for a bit of food? But looking closer, that food looked divine, packed with the potency of high-level medicine. The 9 great saints were literally glowing with every bite they took. 3 pairs of eyes watched with pure longing, held back only by a shred of willpower. I caught their expressions out of the corner of my eye and laughed to myself. They talked a big game about willpower and the path of the heart. But didn't they realize the saliva was practically pouring out of their mouths? Fine then, let's see just how long they can actually hold out. I found the whole thing hilarious, so I decided to slow down my eating even more. It was officially the slowest meal I had ever eaten in my life. I chewed every single morsel slowly, savoring the flavor of every bite. For those 3 fallen creatures, this was nothing short of psychological warfare. The 9 great saints couldn't eat much. The food was so potent they risked exploding if they took another bite. That meant the rest of the massive feast was going straight into my stomach. "Are you finished eating?" my junior sister asked. "Yeah, I'm all done," I replied. "How about you?" "I'm finished too. You must be stuffed." "Actually, I'm not quite there yet." Right, of course. Well, I'll start clearing the table then." She began cleaning the plates, leaving absolutely nothing behind for the prisoners. The 3 fallen beings stared greedily like 3 starving kittens. It was pathetic. If they wanted to eat, they could just say so. "Oomph, we will absolutely not eat a single bite of your food," they spat. "Even if I starved to death." It didn't matter to me. I could see the doubt flickering in their eyes, but their pride as the strong kept them from admitting it. I didn't push them this time. I simply turned around and started to walk away. Whether it was intentional or not, I walked to the edge of the field and dumped all the leftovers into the soil as fertilizer. The three fallen creatures watched in absolute horror. What a waste of nature. What a squandering of heaven's gifts. Those scraps could have filled their stomachs and even helped them ascend. The three fallen creatures finally realized it. Everything from this immortal world was a treasure. Otherwise, the 9 great saints wouldn't have progressed so fast after just one of my meals. They noticed the saints' auras had grown significantly stronger, and the pressure they radiated had intensified. I wasn't in any rush to tame them just yet. There's an old saying, you can't eat hot tofu in a hurry. I'll take it slow. I have all the time in the world. After eating, I sat at the edge of the field to cultivate for 2 cycles before heading back to the house. When dusk fell, I went to sleep. The next morning, I brought more fragrant food back to the garden of gods and demons. The 3 fallen creatures had spent another night starving, their stomachs growling as they looked for food. For breakfast, I pulled out boiled eggs and pure milk. Let's see how you 3 brothers handle this. When I arrived at the field with breakfast, I found the 3 fallen creatures slumped against the edge of the barrier. They were muttering to themselves, sounding completely defeated. I realize now that I can't dominate the world like I used to, one whispered. That dream I had of tearing through the immortal domain and crushing the giants. It's gone. It's vanished into thin air. I'm starting to see that I'm much weaker than I ever imagined. I can only survive on the outermost edge of the tree of life. I'm not even qualified for the inner circle. And last night, I was attacked by some unknown, terrifying creature. I spent the whole night fighting that chaos monster, another cried out. If the 9 saints hadn't stepped in to drive that demonic beast away, we'd be dead. My brothers and I are terrified of becoming nothing more than wandering souls in this world. The power here is far beyond anything we knew. We're nothing but ants. A chaos demon of that level could suffocate us with its presence alone. Never mind that sky-high, immortal giant. To think we were arrogant enough to challenge him yesterday and claim we'd kill an immortal. We were clowns. It's no wonder Chen Feng's words were so harsh. He wasn't trying to slander us or insult us on purpose. He was just telling the truth. We were just too sensitive. We thought he was attacking our pride. But after a night of reflection, I see it. Without that giant's protection, we won't survive. Even if the chaos demons don't hunt us down, we'll starve to death. It's no wonder the 9 saints cling to that giant for protection. Being tough without a brain is just plain stupidity. I walked over with breakfast, unaware of the shift in their pathetic minds. I didn't even glance at them as they shuffled toward the 9 saints. Everyone, come and eat, I called out, assuming the beasts were still stubborn. They were fallen creatures, after all, famous for being hard-headed. There was no way they'd learn their lesson in a single night. At least, that's what I thought. I didn't realize they had already broken and were looking for an excuse to crawl back. Thank you, immortal, they chirped, suddenly eager to join the meal. The 9 saints emerged from their dwellings, laughing and chatting as they approached. I set the food down and said, today's breakfast is fresh eggs. A local gave me his prize hen as a gift. She's been raised for over 2 years. They look like ordinary eggs, but they're packed with nutrients. Wait, one of the saints asked, how strong is this hen compared to that chaos boar? I shrugged. That hen's combat power is 100 times stronger than a chaos spider. Hearing that, the little ones looked even more terrified. The memory of that chaos spider had clearly left them with deep psychological trauma. In their hearts, that spider was already an invincible nightmare. But a chaos hen? Something even more powerful than that chaos spider? They couldn't even fathom a creature that strong being treated as mere poultry. To them, it was just livestock raised by giants to lay eggs for breakfast. The absurdity of it all left them completely stunned. The little ones stared at me with wide, shimmering eyes. Their admiration for me reached a whole new level of intensity. In this immortal realm, I was clearly a titan, a true ruler of the land. Even the 3 fallen creatures spying from the shadows shared that same terrifying impression. I placed a large, oval, hard-boiled egg onto a plate. It was massive compared to the eggs back on Earth. For these tiny beings, a single egg was a feast they could barely finish. I watched them gather around the food like it was a mountain of gold. Eat up, I told them, and don't let a single bite go to waste. I pointed to the milk and added, this comes from a demon cow. It's incredibly nutritious. I tried to explain things in simple terms they could actually understand, but with every word I spoke, their eyes sparkled with even more awe. To me, this was just a standard, everyday breakfast. To them, I was serving up heaven-defying miracle medicine. The 9 saints began devouring the egg whites and gulping down the pure white milk. They gnawed at the egg for a long time, only managing to dent a small piece of the golden yolk. The 3 fallen creatures watched me eat with greed in their eyes and mouths watering. It looked absolutely delicious. They were desperate for just a single taste of that meal. Since chickens and phoenixes share an origin, that immortal egg was the key to their evolution. The urge to eat was consuming them. If looks could kill, that plate would have been devoured 10 times over by now. I looked over at the 3 fallen creatures and smiled, though they felt a chill in their hearts. Inside, they were begging, just say the word, and we'll surrender. Give us one chance, and we'll submit to you forever. Just one word, just call out to us. Be considerate. With just a single greeting, we'll follow you anywhere. but I said nothing and just kept smiling, thinking they were far too proud to flip so easily. I figured I should let them languish for a bit and take things one step at a time. I'd let them go hungry and see how the situation developed. There was no rush. If those three could hear my thoughts, they would have burst into tears right then and there. We aren't actually that stubborn. It's all a facade. Just say the word. We're incredibly easy to convince. If you don't believe us, just try. What a pity. I truly believe they possessed a high, unbreakable spirit. I had no idea that in their hearts, they had already surrendered completely. I finished eating and drinking my fill, but there was still a little food left on the plate. The eyes of those three fallen creatures lit up with sudden hope. This was it. The moment had finally arrived. Inside, they were screaming, "Just say the word, and we'll follow you anywhere. Please, I'm begging you, just say one word." They waited for me to speak, certain that their big opportunity was here. But I just gave them a long, thoughtful look inside. I originally wanted to invite them to share the meal with me, but knowing their proud personalities, I figured they'd just look down on the offer. If I invited them to eat, they'd probably take it as a personal insult. I decided I wouldn't overstep my bounds or offend their dignity. "I hope you three think things over carefully," I said. "If you don't eat well in this world, you really might starve to death." After saying that, I picked up the tray and walked away. The three fallen creatures stood there, absolutely stunned. They really thought the chance to surrender with dignity had finally come. They just needed me to give them a tiny excuse to give in. They would have feigned a little resistance, then accepted, and everyone would be happy. But I had no idea what they were planning. I had put their noble spirits on such a high pedestal that they couldn't even find a way to speak up. "You didn't even ask us. How do you know we're too proud to speak up? What makes you think we wouldn't agree? Why would you call a meal an insult? We don't find it insulting at all. In fact, could you please insult us a little more? And would we really starve after missing one meal? It's already been 3. The three fallen creatures were ready to swallow their pride and surrender. But I didn't care about their mental gymnastics. I just thought they'd be interesting pets to keep around. I wasn't going to force them to submit. If they wanted to die for their honor, that was on them. In this world, there's no cure for someone who is hell-bent on seeking their own death. I tossed the leftovers to the chickens in their cage and watched them eat. Then, I washed the dishes and cleared my mind. I walked out to the field and sat cross-legged on a massive rock right in the center. Cultivating under the rising sun, I realized this technique still didn't have a name. From now on, I'll call it the Anonymous Celestial Palace. I began circulating my energy, and I noticed the speed was increasing every second. I didn't even need 3 hours anymore. I could finish 2 full cycles in a single morning. With every completed cycle, my blood, tendons, and bones underwent a total transformation. Wait, it seems I've discovered that the one running this trial hasn't actually left yet. During the second cycle, as I pushed my internal force, I felt something abnormal inside me. There were strange, inert substances scattered throughout my meridians and my wings. Every time my energy hits those inert substances, it gets stuck like a tiger in the mud. These are the main culprits holding back my speed, forcing me to waste time pushing through them. If I could just scrape these blockages away, my power would truly soar. I was so focused, I didn't even notice the shift in my own nature. I had stopped just imitating techniques and started thinking like a true master. This was a massive breakthrough in my journey. I was finally synthesizing my own experiences into a path of my own. But the question remained, how do I get rid of these inert substances? Theory is one thing, but action is worth 1,000 words. I closed my eyes and used my internal energy to wrap around the blockages, trying to shake them loose. But they were stubborn, clinging to my meridians like they were a permanent part of my body. I started to wonder if these things were impossible to remove, if they were born with me. I figured I'd just ask the 9 great sages about it during lunch. I gave it one last desperate push, and just as I was about to give up, I felt a tiny piece of that inert substance finally tear away from my inner wall. It was just a small fragment, but it was moving. Success. I concentrated hard, using my energy to guide the debris through my meridians toward my digestive tract. It took an entire hour of grueling effort just to transport that tiny speck to the exit point. By the time I was done, I was completely drained and soaked in sweat. But what surprised me most was what happened after removing that tiny speck. My energy flowed through that spot without a single hitch, making my body feel incredibly flexible. If clearing one fragment did this, what would happen if I purged them all? Could I complete a full cultivation cycle in a minute and move as fast as lightning? This sudden breakthrough thrilled me, but I stopped there and glanced at the sky. It was lunchtime, and I didn't care what those 3 fallen creatures wanted anymore. I decided to keep the menu simple today. The main course was a hearty stew of beef brisket, tomatoes, and shrimp. I paired it with a rich pig heart soup, a side of steaming white rice, and a generous serving of fresh Chinese cabbage. The aroma alone was enough to make my heart race with excitement. The 9 great sages and I dug in, sharing the feast with pure delight. We ate until our faces were glistening. The flavor was simply irresistible. I continued to ignore the 3 fallen creatures, knowing their pride wouldn't break easily. Their expressions grew darker by the second, but not just because of my cold shoulder. They were starving. Back in the lower realm, they had mastered the art of fasting for years on end. But in the immortal world, even breathing drains your energy, making food a necessity. It was a weakness they hadn't planned for, and their small bodies couldn't store enough power to last. They've gone over a day without a single bite, and even a human couldn't handle that, let alone 3 strange beasts no bigger than a fist. It's no exaggeration to say they were starving, and in a bad way. They could only lie there, slumped weakly against the edge of the barrier. I could see the bitterness in their eyes, but what left them truly speechless was us. The 10 of us just kept eating and eating, describing every delicious detail out loud. I kept praising the texture, making sure they heard every word. It was driving those 3 fallen creatures mad with hunger. This beef must be from a terrifying, immortal beast. My blood is surging, and I'm on the verge of a breakthrough. It's so delicious. Eating something this high level is the honor of a lifetime. It smells like a divine pill, fresh and intoxicating. The hunger pangs in my stomach were practically exploding. I knew my companions were saying these things on purpose, just so the creatures would hear. The 3 fallen creatures looked absolutely miserable. I could tell they wanted to eat. They wanted to surrender right then and there. But the giant's earlier words had blocked their path, leaving them too ashamed to give in. I wondered, what would they do now? I had no idea what they were thinking as I watched them. The 3 fallen beings just sat there, acting proud and completely unmoved. They acted as if they wouldn't deign to speak to us, not even bothering to lift a finger. They looked down on us with such contempt. Isn't that just being stubborn? Just as I expected. Fallen beings will always be fallen beings. Standing firm, it seems these creatures probably won't surrender. There's no point in trying to reason with them. Look at how cold and proud they are. They'd rather die than give in. Look at those noble virtues of theirs. So defiant, truly worthy of the title of fallen beings. Well, the truth is, they're just too hungry to even bother lifting their heads. After eating, I cleared the table. Of course, I took the leftovers with me. I carried it all away right under their pleading gazes. They were dying to ask for a bite. But in the end, they didn't say a word. What a shame. What a pity. I disappeared from their sight, and only then did they feel a deep, crushing regret. What good is pride now? Can you eat pride? Such regret. If only they had one more chance. They would definitely, absolutely beg for some food. Maybe there's still a chance. When the giant returns, they'll tell me exactly how they feel. After putting the dishes away, I'd have to come back and check on them eventually, right? They're hoping that next time, there won't be any more hesitation. No more doubts. But I didn't actually come back after putting the dishes away. I didn't even take a nap. I went straight into cultivation, using my energy to purge the inert matter from my body. I believe this will definitely be a massive help for my future. The key positions. There are about 300 or 400 points of inert substance. Clearing every single point would probably take me 10 days to half a month. But if I clear these key training areas, my speed will skyrocket. It's a virtuous cycle. In just one afternoon, I managed to clear 15 points. I felt lighter, stronger, and my technique execution speed increased tremendously. Now it only takes about 2 hours to complete one full heavenly cycle. Finding the key is the ultimate shortcut. What happens if I purge all the inert matter in my path? Dinner time. As usual, I was right there. I was busy cooking. I was in a great mood today. I prepared a chicken. A whole chicken, uncut, simmered into a rich soup. I added some supplements. I threw in some ginseng and various vegetables. I carried the pot back into the paradise of gods and demons. By now, the 3 fallen beings couldn't take it anymore. They were literally starving. Immortal Elder. Giant, we surrender. We're ready to submit. Just please, give us some food. The eyes of those 3 fallen creatures were bloodshot with desperation. When they saw me arrive, they acted like 3 lost puppies. Like dogs seeing a master who hadn't been home in years. The moment I opened the door, they came charging toward me. They sprinted at full speed from the very edge of the barrier. They collapsed at my feet. No more power plays, no more pride, just a desperate hunger for a single bite. They didn't even have the strength to fly, using their last bit of energy just to crawl across the dirt. Seeing the sheer madness in these 3 creatures, I stood there completely stunned. I thought, what are they doing? Aren't these the unbreakable Diloa creatures who'd rather die than bow? I don't buy it. This has to be a trap, a trick to make me lower my guard so they can laugh at my stupidity. Stop joking around, I snapped. Since when do fallen beings give up this easily? It's not a joke. They whimpered. We don't think like that anymore. We are submitting to you sincerely. These were beings whose very presence could shape worlds. They created forbidden zones that struck terror into the hearts of every living thing. They were reapers, harvesting the lives of countless souls. Thank you, one of them groaned. A single glance from them used to end the paths of immortal cultivators. Thank you for the mercy. Who was the true peak of existence now? They had fallen, and in my battle, I wondered, what is true strength? Even when faced with the ultimate truth, the world announces its presence to everyone. Even if the cultivators of this world fight against the virus, one by one, they are flattened and they fall. I looked inside and observed. I watched them with total indifference. Eternity was at stake. I thought, these beings view the world like gods. Would they really compromise for a meal after just one day of hunger? What kind of fallen creature is that weak? One day of hunger is nothing, so I decided to wait and see what happened next. After a day of starving, do you finally understand what it means to be sensible? Do you understand that the longer you live, the more you fear death? If we weren't afraid, we wouldn't have survived this long. Oh no, no, no. Great Elder, please don't mock us. We aren't lying. We swear upon the heavenly Tao, and if we break our word, let 5 bolts of lightning strike us dead. Black Qilin and the other two fallen beings truly couldn't take it anymore, resorting to such vicious oaths. Swearing by the heavenly Tao is a grave matter for any cultivator. If they violate it, the punishment is absolute. They would be judged by the heavens themselves, struck down by celestial fire, and completely annihilated. Of course, I didn't know any of this yet. I was still completely in the dark. I almost believed them. I never expected lies to sound so much like the truth.